Okay, cool. Hey guys, so let me mute Facebook real quick. All right, guys, there we are. Had to mute Facebook real quick. Okay, cool. So we do our live training every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. And today I'm teaching you guys how to lean bulk to maximize your muscular and strength gains while minimizing fat gain, and how to make your waist smaller. So when it comes to bulking, or actually building muscle and strength, bulking is the best way to do that from the nutritional standpoint. We've covered the optimized way when it comes to your training, the optimized way to build muscle and strength. So today I'm primarily focusing on your nutrition, on this topic of, maximizing your muscle and strength gains. So bulking is the best way to do that. However, a lot of people don't like gaining the fat that can come with doing a regular bulk. Even if you do it with mostly whole foods, the rate at which you gain weight does have, you inevitably will put on some fat along with that muscle. But that is part of the process of, building muscle and strength, and basically periodizing your training and your nutrition so that you're prioritizing building muscle and building strength, and then getting leaner again so that you see that new muscle again. So periodization is important in that regard. However, if you are wanting to minimize fat gain as much as possible while still being able to build muscle and strength, you will want to do what is called a lean bulk. And so we'll get into the details on that. But also on that topic, someone had requested that I teach them how to lean bulk while keeping their waist small. So in this training, I'm also going to be covering 7 different steps that you can take alongside with your lean bulk to not only keep your waist small, but help to make it smaller. And then, of course, if you're not in a phase right now where you feel like a lean bulk is appropriate for you, then you can just ignore that part for now and just focus on the how to make your waist smaller and all of those steps. So how do you successfully lean bulk? So everyone's metabolism, their metabolism speeds are going to be different. So I'm not going to give a generic calculation for how many calories you should eat, because that's going to be different for everybody. Plus, everyone's metabolic health is going to be in a different place. So a lot of times those calculators aren't very accurate. Whenever I have my own one-on-one clients, I don't just assess their body weight and height and activity level. I also assess their metabolic history, how healthy their metabolism is now. So I'm not going to cover that. So I don't recommend any specific amount of calories, but I am going to show you how to basically get the best results in gauging how quickly you should and shouldn't be gaining weight. So in a lean bulk, to minimize fat gain as much as possible, you should aim to gain about 0.2 to 0.5% of your body weight's weekly average each week. So I know that can sound a little complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. So what I mean by that is you are going to weigh yourself every day during every week. So there's 7 days in a week. You're going to calculate that the average of all of those weight measurements for that entire week. So you're going to measure your weight Monday through Sunday. All of those numbers, you're going to add them up, and then you're going to divide them by 7 to get your weekly average. That is your weekly average weight. That number is significantly more important than your day-to-day fluctuations in weight, because it is entirely normal for your weight to go up and down. from day to day, depending not just on how much food you ate, but it could be based off of your hormones. For women, it could be based off of their menstrual cycle, whatever phase that they're in. If you weigh yourself the day after an intense training session, you're going to hold more water. So the day-to-day fluctuations aren't so important. Rather, the more important number is your weight on average throughout the whole week. So, let's see. Sorry, guys, I'm looking at my notes on this. By the way, I have a whole guide on this. Another thing, I'm going to try to keep this as efficient as possible. There's a lot of really valuable information in this training, but I'm hoping to get through it really quickly. So I'm going to do my best. Okay. So let's see. Okay, so let's say that your weekly weight average is 150 pounds. So from there, you'd multiply 150 times 0.002. That's the 0.2% that I mentioned earlier. And 150 times a 0.005. And that's going to give you your target window of how much weight you should be gaining from week to week in a successful lean bulk. So for that 150-pound person, he or she would want to gain 0.3 to 0.75 pounds per week in a lean bulk. And that's after calculating his or her new weekly average. So by the end of week one, that 150-pound person will be 150.3 or up to 150.75. So it's not a lot of weight. But if you gain weight very slowly like that, most of the weight that you gain is going to be muscle mass instead of fat versus a conventional bulk. So for this to be successful, you will have to track your calories so that if you are gaining less or more weight than your target window, you can appropriately add or remove calories. So if you're gaining more than the 0.5% of your weekly weights average, then you'll need to decrease calories. And that amount that you change it will dictate how many calories you need to remove. So let's say that you're gaining a pound every week. Then if you're gaining a pound every week, you won't need to decrease the calories by as much versus if you're gaining 2 pounds every week, compared to the percentage that we calculated, 2 pounds will be appropriate for some people if they weigh more. So specifically for that 150-pound person, 2 pounds every week is too much. So they'll need to decrease their calories even more to get within that window of 0.2% to 0.5%. So rather than complicating the exact numbers of how much you should decrease your calories percentage-wise if you're gaining too much weight, or how much you should increase your calories percentage-wise if you're not gaining enough weight. So I don't want to complicate it in that regard, but in general, if you're not within that weekly gain of 0.2 to 0.5%, you'll want to decrease or increase your calories between typically 50 to 150 calories, maybe in some cases up to 250 calories. But I would say that's probably only going to happen the first week or two if you have to do it by that much, because you just greatly underestimated your maintenance or lean bulk calories. So let's see. Okay. So when it comes to figuring out how many calories you need to eat to reach your weight gaining window, that should typically only take maybe a week or two of adjusting your calories to figure out how many calories you need to eat in order to gain within that window. But once you do figure that out, you're pretty much set for the time being. So, but eventually your body will stall in its ability to gain weight within that window. So at that point, you'll need to increase your calories again to stay within your new weight gain window. So you know, if you're able to maintain your body weight at 2,000 calories, and then you do a lean bulk at say 2,200 calories, and that keeps you within that window of gaining weight 0.2 to 0.5%. Eventually your body will adjust to that and it'll start to slow down its rate of gaining weight, or it'll just stop gaining weight altogether. That is perfectly normal. And so what you want to do at that point is, once your weight gain stalls, you'll want to calculate your new weight gain window. So that's your new weight times the 0.02 to 0.005. So let's say you started at 150, you gained 2 pounds over the course of, you know, a couple of weeks, and then your weight stalled for 1 or 2 weeks. Then now that you're 152 pounds, you'll want to do that new calculation with that new body weight. So I don't suggest, and again, from there, you'd only be increasing by 50 to 150, maybe 250 calories. I don't suggest calculating your target gaining window every week, as doing so, it can cause you to gain weight more rapidly, because it takes you out of that target window more easily. Again, your body needs time to adjust to calories. I had tried this once in the past where I was like calculating my weekly gaining window every week as I gained a little bit of weight. And I found doing so just quickly brought me out of that gaining window. So I don't recommend calculating your new gaining window until your weight stalls for a week or two. For women, all of these concepts apply exactly the same, except I would suggest not adding calories during your menstrual cycle or up to 5 days before you start your period. And this is because for women, it is entirely normal to hold on to more water during this time. And so, like, with that said, I also suggest not freaking out if you do have a spike in your weight during that phase in your cycle, but to keep steady with your current calories that you had already established before your period, and that you kept there during that time frame. And then you know, just keep it steady until then, until you finish your period. And then from there you can reassess whether you need to add more calories from there, depending on how your body responds within that weight gaining window. So real quickly, to summarize how to do a lean bulk regarding calories, there are going to be more details later. You should do the following. Assuming that you're on maintenance calories, don't change your calories, but measure your weight each day for a week to get your weight's weekly average. From there, you're going to calculate your weekly average of weight gain that you should aim for, and that's going to be your weight's weekly average for the week. I'm sorry, I kind of confused that. Okay, so to basically, if you're eating at maintenance calories, increase your calories by 50 to 250 calories to gain 0.2 to 0.5% of your body's weekly average. If you gain too little or too much, you're going to remove or add calories by 50 to 150 calories, maybe up to 250 if you really under or overestimated, depending on how far away you are from your gaining window. And then from there, do not recalculate your weekly weight gain each week. As you gain weight, you're going to wait until your weight stalls before you calculate your new gaining window. And then for women, nothing changes. Just don't add any calories up to 5 days before your period and during your menstrual cycle. Just wait it out. Once your period ends, then go ahead and reassess everything from there. Cool. Now the following steps are more so that applied more so to basically minimizing fat gain. So these following steps are more so going to focus on more details in regards to minimizing a fat gain in a lean bulk and maximizing your muscle and strength gains, but also how to make your waist smaller and keep it small. So have you guys ever seen a very muscular and lean person who looks like their abdomen is bulging? So a good example of this would think of the traditional mass monsters. Mass monsters are, a style of bodybuilding that became popular in the 90s. So an example of that would be Phil Heath, as an example. He was incredibly muscular and lean, but his stomach still bulged out. Let me see if I can give you guys a picture real quick. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen with y'all. Okay. All right, so this is Phil Heath. Obviously, he's incredibly muscular, incredibly lean, but look at how his stomach bulges out. You can tell from the front and the side. So basically, part of that is due to, it can be from a variety of reasons, like including taking steroids and poor gut health. In regards to Phil Heath, it was a combination of steroids and also not practicing stomach vacuums like you should. So that is actually one of the really cool techniques that you can do to keep your stomach flat or even slightly concave, in a healthy way, of course. And that is to do stomach vacuum. So concave is when, if your back is here, your stomach is here, your stomach kind of goes in like that. It doesn't have to do that, by the way. You don't have to go to that extreme to make your waist smaller. So performing stomach vacuums work your innermost abdominal muscles, which are called the transverse abdominis. And medical news today basically describes it as a, quote, corset-like muscle that forms the deepest layer of abdominal muscles. This muscle horizontally wraps around the abdomen, end quote. So basically, your transverse abdominis helps to pull your belly in towards your spine, and it can also pull your stomach up, so that like you basically get that look that's like, a slightly bigger rib cage, smaller waist, and then the hips go out too, basically creating that X-frame look from the waist. So in essence, when your transverse abdominis is working, it pulls your tummy in, whereas your rectus abdominis, that's the outer muscle on your abdomen, your rectus abdominis pushes your stomach out. So think of performing a very heavy squat and your stomach pushes out, or say you're doing very heavy leg press, and if you look at your stomach tends to push out to basically help you move the weight. Okay, so the transverse abdominis, remember that inner abdominal muscle, also helps to lift your organs so that stomach vacuums simultaneously pull your organs in and up. So doing stomach vacuums can also be great for strengthening and lifting your pelvic floor, both for men and women. Typically, when people talk about their pelvic floor, they think it's only for women. That's not the case. It benefits men and women. If you've ever felt pressure in your pelvic floor, doing stomach vacuums will help relieve it both short and long term. So basically doing stomach vacuums can also help to strengthen your pelvic floor as well. So I'm going to show you guys real quick what stomach vacuums look like. I'm sure some of you guys know, and then we will cover how to do them to get the benefits from them. Okay, so this is a stomach vacuum. It's basically where you suck your stomach in as hard and far as you can go. You suck it in and up into your rib cage. Okay, so let's see how you do stomach vacuums. You can do stomach vacuums anytime, but it's easier to do them in the mornings on an empty stomach after you've relieved yourself. And the reason why is because if you have more volume in your stomach, it makes it a little bit harder to pull your stomach in and up. So it's much easier to do if you are fasted. That doesn't mean you can't do it when you're not fasted, but I would say if minimizing your waist size is your priority with stomach vacuums, then definitely do it while you're fasted. So that's step one. Do it in the morning when you're fasted. Step two, start by being seated or laying down on your back. It's not that you can't do it in any other position. It's just that it's easier to do it if you're sitting or laying down. And then also if you're new to it, don't want you to potentially get lightheaded and pass out. So just be careful. So step three is you're going to exhale all of the air within your lungs. So if you take a deep breath in and then you exhale all of it out. From there, after you exhale it all out, you're going to hold that position so that you're not breathing any more air. So you've exhaled all of the air, and then you are going to pull your stomach to your spine and lift it up into your rib cage. And it's much easier to do, not just with an empty stomach, but also if you have fully exhaled all of the air. So if a lot of times when you do that, especially if you're laying down, you can feel your organs kind of stretching. I particularly feel it in the organs in the lower part of the stomach, but it can be a little bit painful to a degree, nothing horrible, but as you keep doing it, that pain goes away because it's kind of like, your body gets used to the stretching, kind of like, stretching your muscles, same thing. So as you do so, your rib cage will naturally expand to allow your organs to lift up against your diaphragm. You're going to hold that position without inhaling for as long as you can. As you keep practicing, your ability to hold this position will lengthen. So at first, you won't be able to hold it for very long, but as you keep practicing, you'll be able to hold it longer and longer and longer. Okay, so when you can't hold your breath any longer, you're going to inhale and release the position, and then you're going to take a couple of breaths, then start the process over again. I suggest to continue doing stomach vacuums for a 5-minute session once a day. I do it about 5 to 6 days a week, but you can probably get pretty good benefits from just doing 3 or 4 times a week. So it's really easy. I do it in the mornings when I wake up after I go to the bathroom. I typically lay back in bed, to help, wake myself up better. And then I do stomach vacuums for about 5 minutes, and it's really great for making your waist smaller over time. A lot of professional bodybuilders would do it, especially the ones who are concerned about that stomach bulge that a lot of professional bodybuilders get, especially, but not limited to taking steroids. So it's really great for that. So if you currently do have a bulging stomach, you'll see your stomach flatten over time as you practice stomach vacuums. Again, that being said, that you're not carrying excess fat, which in that case would require being in a caloric deficit to lose fat. And also if you don't have digestion issues, meaning that like if you have digestion issues, like constipation or bloating, it's going to be harder to, have a concave stomach, whatever, smaller waist, just because you have that inflammation. And we're going to talk more about that later. So actually that's the next topic. So the other thing that basically chronic gut issues do the opposite of stomach vacuums. So you know how stomach vacuums, it's basically you're pulling your stomach in and up and strengthening that transverse abdominis. Well, if you have chronic gut issues that like constipation, bloating, gas, by chronic, I mean regular, not occasional, then that internal pressure is going to push against your transverse abdominis and all of your other abdominal muscles. So in essence, gut issues can make your waist bigger, look bigger, because it's, again, it's pressure in the opposite direction. So, okay, let's see. So basically creating a convex stomach. So concave, here's your back, here's your stomach. Concave is going in, convex is going out like this. So this is, I would say this is a minor reason. The aesthetic aspect of this is a minor reason out of the many major reasons why you should take care of your gut health. But you know, gut issues really are on the rise in the West, with more and more people complaining about chronic constipation, bloating, gas, and diarrhea. Like it really is on the rise, and it's really, really sad. And even if like most times your gut issues start off small and rare, like, you know, the occasional bloating, gas, constipation, a lot of times you can, or maybe you don't even have symptoms right now, specifically in your gut. Maybe you have skin issues like acne and rosacea. That all comes from the health of your gut, even if you don't have gut specific symptoms. So a lot of times they can start off as infrequent, rare, but if you don't take care of what is at the root of the problem, which oftentimes is a bacterial overgrowth, a fungal overgrowth in the small and large intestines or colon, or again, the acne, rosacea, things like that. If you don't target the problems holistically at the root cause, over time they can proliferate, meaning they get worse, eventually turning your occasional gut issues into chronic ones, which again also leads to other major health issues down the road. And then of course the minor, although also, you know, big thing for people is it can disrupt your look aesthetically and basically expand your stomach permanently. What I mean by permanently is that if you don't do something to rectify it after the gut issues, it'll just stay that way. Just like stomach vacuums help to make your waist smaller and pull your stomach in and lift it up. So just like when it comes to our gut, just like our pets have an annual or biannual deworming, so too do we need regular gut cleansings to eradicate bad bacteria, fungal overgrowth, or parasites. And this used to be really common in society, like just like a no-brainer sort of biannual, annual thing that people used to do all their lives. But we've kind of gotten away from that in recent decades, especially with the rise of like modern Western medicine. So, but if your condition is chronic, you'll need to do a longer bout of this. So, you know, if you have chronic gut issues, then you can't just get away with annual or biannual antimicrobials to address the issue. You do have to do a longer bout of that. And then after that, you're going to have to take time to restore your good bacteria. That's super important, and heal the intestinal lining that the bad bacteria likely damaged. It's often said that disease starts in the gut, meaning that chronic gut issues can lead to other health problems down the line. On a side note, chronic gut problems can also hinder your ability to gain muscle and strength. So back to the main topic of this training, you know, about lean bulking, it's all about building muscle and strength. But if you have these chronic gut issues and chronic inflammation, even just in the gut itself, it can hinder your muscular gains. Muscular inflammation after a workout is perfectly normal and is actually required to stimulate hypertrophy, meaning muscle gains. But chronic inflammation in the body can also hinder your muscle building capability. So not only do gut issues lend to health issues, but they also can hinder your gains, your recoverability, nutrient absorption, which further hinders muscular gains. It makes it harder to lose fat, messing up your lean bulk because you'll have a higher propensity to gain fat if you have chronic gut issues. It can also expand your waistline due to the inner pressure pushing out, doing just the opposite of stomach vacuums. Now, when it comes to addressing how to resolve gut issues naturally, that's a very long and detailed process, and it's going to be individual for every single person. So I can't go into detail with that. But in general, to keep your gut healthy, you'll want to eat predominantly whole foods. And whole foods are whatever grows on the earth that's edible, of course. And animals that roam on the earth is considered whole foods. You'll also want to do biannual gut cleanses. And now when I say that, I don't mean those like silly cliche skinny teas that make you poop a lot, or, you know, detox in the way that they say detoxing is really important. But what I do mean is actual antimicrobial, antibacterial, and antifungal herbs and compounds. You're always going to want to restore your good bacteria after a gut cleanse, because unfortunately, even natural antimicrobial herbs can cause collateral damage to your good bacteria. So if you don't replace your good bacteria after killing your bad bacteria or the fungi, whatever it was, the bad bacteria can easily come back. I like to think of it, hold on guys, let me get some water. On that topic, I like to think of it like, I know not everybody's a Christian, but for those of you who read the Bible, Jesus gives this parable about those who are basically delivered from demons. And he said that, like, if a person is delivered from demons, but they're not filled with something good to replace the space where the demon was, i.e. replaced with Jesus, you know, God, love, things like that, then what's going to happen is that person is going to, you know, so to speak, sweep up that area in their spirit where the demon was. They're going to, you know, clean the floor and feel like they're clean, but all that's going to happen is that demon is going to go out and search for 7 other demons more powerful than he is and reinvade that person. So bacteria is very, very similar in that concept. If you have a bad bacteria overgrowth and you completely eradicate it with, you know, antimicrobials, and, you know, because there is collateral damage, it can also kill your good bacteria. If you don't replace where that bad bacteria was with good bacteria, that bad bacteria is just going to come back and proliferate again. So I always think that's very, very interesting. Anyway, you're also going to want to eat fermented foods in moderation. That is key to feed your good bacteria. Fermented foods could be kimchi, pickles, kombucha, fermented yogurts, etc. So you'll want to think of fermented foods as a small snack and nothing more, because too much can also cause gut issues too. You know, fermented foods, any bacteria, good or bad, likes to be fermented. So if you're eating too much fermented foods, then it can cause your bad bacteria to, you know, proliferate again. So it should be in moderation. You'll also want to avoid PUFAs, which are polyunsaturated fatty acids. These are typically processed seed oils, and they can increase inflammation and directly feed bad pathogens. You'll also want to promote healthy stomach acid levels. Stomach acid is your first line of defense against pathogens. But if your body isn't making enough stomach acid, this can also allow them to pass through your gut and proliferate. So what you can do to increase your stomach acid naturally is eating a handful of bitter veggies like kale, collard greens, mustard greens. Or if you don't want to do that, you can have a dropper full of bitters tincture, both of which can signal to your stomach to produce more stomach acid and produce more enzymes, both of which break down food, and stomach acid specifically kills bad bacteria, fungi, parasites, etc. Okay, so the next step is in your lean bulk is eating enough protein. So getting adequate protein is crucial for building muscle, because that's what muscle is made of, out of, right? it's made out of mostly protein. When you eat an animal, you're eating mostly it's muscle. If it's lean, you're eating mostly it's muscle. And that is predominantly made out of protein. So it's much easier to build muscle when you're getting adequate protein. So if you're in a lean bulk, like described earlier, you'll want to eat about 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So if you're 200 pounds, you want to eat 200 to 220 grams of protein a day. You'll also want most of your food in general to be whole foods, but protein also in the form of whole foods or solid food. But having the occasional like 1 to 2 scoops of protein a day is perfectly fine too. It's not horrible. And then as for your performance in the gym, which is really key for building muscle mass, and we're going to go into a little bit more detail in just a second on that. Carbs are also really important too for boosting your performance, because the better you perform, the better you can fatigue and create mechanical tension on your muscles, which are the driving forces behind building muscle mass and strength. So carbs boost your performance in the gym. If you're weightlifting, that is, which you should be. And they can also improve your physique aesthetically by making your muscles look fuller, because carbs are stored in both your liver as glycogen and your muscles as glycogen. A lot of times you'll hear bodybuilders speak of how in the mornings they are glycogen depleted, and so their muscles look flat. But after they eat a meal or two, their muscles fill out and look fuller, so they look more muscular overall and more aesthetic. It's the exact same thing. So if you're in a lean bulk, you can keep when it comes to your overall macros, I'm not going to give specific macros for people because that's going to be individual, but in general, if you're in a lean bulk, you can keep your fat intake to about 20 to 25%, eat 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body weight, and then fill the rest of your calories with carbs. And this macro breakdown will be great for building muscle mass and boosting performance, which all go hand in hand. They both interact with each other. Okay, so how do you get the most out of your lean bulk? You'll also want to prioritize high intensity training. High intensity training is king. It is the most effective and efficient way to build muscle mass. So you can't build muscle mass if you aren't resistance training in some way, right? Like you can't build muscle mass if you're a cardio bunny, if you're, running for miles and miles a day. If you're, swimming for 2 hours a day, you're not going to build muscle mass. You have to specifically do a form of resistance training. Now, typically that is weightlifting. That's the most conventionally thought of form of resistance training, but it's not limited to that. Even just doing isometrics, which is like holding your muscle in a flexed position as hard as you can flex it, has great muscle building capability. That is also resistance training. Anyway, so likely many of you who are reading are going to be reading the guide, which will be available tomorrow, or who are watching this training video. You already know how to weightlift and you do so regularly. And I'd guess that maybe not so many of you who are watching right now because you're familiar with my training methods, but maybe some of you others that most of you are lifting 4 to 6 times a week. That's the conventional way to train. And basically, you don't need to lift that frequently to see amazing gains in strength, muscle mass, and improvements in your body composition. In fact, I'd say most of you who are lifting 4 to 6 times a week, including but not limited to hard gainers. Hard gainers are those who have difficulty gaining muscle and strength despite lifting really hard and heavy and eating a lot of food. That is what a hard gainer is. But not limited to hard gainers, most of you will get better results if you prioritize intensity over volume and work out only 2 to 3 times a week max. I don't care if you're natural or you're taking steroids, you will get better results lifting that way. When it comes to training, you can either prioritize volume or intensity. You cannot have both at the same time. If you're doing like 20 sets per workout, you're prioritizing volume. You cannot train to failure every single set if you are doing that many sets. So let me put it this way. If you take every set you do to absolute failure, where you literally cannot do one more rep and actually you fail a rep, that's training to failure. Do you think you'll be able to do more than 10 sets per workout? You're not going to be. And if you said yes, respectfully, you're poorly mistaken and you're not a very experienced lifter right now. And that's okay. We can always grow from every position that we're in. It just means you don't know what intensity is because you've lifted with high volume for so long. And I would say, and again, this is not a personal attack at all. I would say a lot of people are not familiar with prioritizing intensity over volume. And most people don't even know how to train to failure, including more intermediate and advanced lifters. It's a learning process for everybody. I say that all the time. But science keeps coming out showing that the only effective reps within a set are the final 4 reps leading to failure. Let me say that again. Science keeps coming out showing that the only effective reps within a set are the final 4 reps leading to failure. So likely many of you have heard of RIR, reps in reserve. I'm not going to explain that. I'm trying to get through this quickly. So if you're stopping 5 reps shy of failure, you're not getting any effective reps for building muscle or strength. If you stop at 3 RIR, then you got 1 effective rep, but you didn't train to failure. So you only got that 1 effective rep because you stopped at 3 reps in reserve. If you stop at 2 reps in reserve, you got 2 effective reps, etc. And if you got 0 reps in reserve, then depending on how many reps you did, let's say you got 5 reps, then you got 4 effective reps within that set. So going back to volume versus intensity, if you prioritize volume over intensity, you're automatically making your workouts less effective and efficient. Basically, you're doing fluff volume. It's just fluff. You're doing movement, but it's not very effective. Or at least it's not as effective as it could be. I'm not saying that if you're training well, but you still do high volume, I'm not saying that you can't get amazing and great results. What I am saying is it's not required to get just as good of results doing only 1 set to failure and only lifting 2 to 3 times a week, depending on your recoverability from training to failure. Because the harder you train, the more recovery time you need to be able to build back that muscle and the central nervous system to come back stronger. If you instead prioritize intensity over volume, you will fatigue and stimulate your muscles to grow much earlier on in the workout, meaning you'll save time. Plus, and a lot of you guys know this because I've covered this multiple times in our group, science also shows that when you train to failure, again, 0 reps in reserve, you only need to perform 1 set per exercise to maximally stimulate your muscle to get stronger and build more mass to it. That's it. And you only need to do 1 to 2 exercises per muscle group per workout. So if you're doing an upper body day where you're training your back, shoulders, and chest, along with that is tied in biceps, triceps, whatever, all upper body stuff. Then you only need to do 1 or 2 exercises for your back and you're good. You only need to do 1 or 2 exercises for your chest You're good. You've fully fatigued your muscular fibers as much as they possibly can if you took those sets to failure. And then if your nutrition and sleep and all of that stuff is in order and recoverability is in order, you're going to build as much muscle mass as you possibly can, as fast as you can, as anything else. And I would even say that you can get a lot of people, especially the hard gainers, can actually get better results lifting this way versus the conventional lifting 4 to 6 times a week, doing 3 to 5 sets per exercise, because they don't have an ability to recover as well. And they're basically overtraining is what it is. So even professional bodybuilders like Dorian Yates and Mike Mentzer said they got better results. Yes, better results when they worked out less often with less volume than conventional bodybuilders lifted. Mike Mentzer lifted only 3 times a week. He only did 1 set to failure per exercise. Let me see if I have pictures of them. I cover this in another training where we cover them, but where is it? By the way, guys, if y'all have any questions, just type it in the chat and I will get to them. Oh, dang, I thought I had it on my desktop. Anyway, I guess I could just search it online real quick. So, Mike Mentzer. Oh God, it's gonna make me do a CAPTCHA. Hope it doesn't. Okay, here we go. All right, let me share my screen real quick. Share screen. Cool. All right, you guys should be able to see it. This is Mike Mentzer, professional bodybuilder. Yes, he took steroids. We'll cover that in just a second. But yeah, amazing, amazing physique. Worked out only 3 times a week, only did 1 set to failure. And after he was competing for Mr. Olympia later on in his years, he actually came to the conclusion that even less volume and less workout days was even better. Then you have Dorian Yates. He trained with the same principles. Now, when he first started competing in Mr. Olympia, he was working out 4 times a week. He did a recent interview with Jay Vincent. It was really good. I recommend watching it, where he talked about how he started with these training principles. He did start at lifting 4 times a week, but very low volume and very high intensity, which is not conventional in the bodybuilding world. And he said that like a couple times he was like, you know, these other bodybuilders are lifting more frequently, doing more volume, so let me give it a try. And he ultimately said, like, each time that he tried it, because he tested it out a few times for himself, he said strength gains stalled and his muscle gains stopped. And so he went back to prioritizing intensity over volume, and the gains came back again. And then he eventually met Mike Mentzer, and that's where he learned from Mike that he would actually get better results if he reduced his volume even lower. So over the years, he reduced his volume while he was competing in Mr. Olympia. And now he's still in great shape. Obviously, he's not taking steroids anymore, so he's not as big. But he now recommends only lifting 2 times a week and just the 1 set to failure. So yes, both of them were enhanced, meaning they took steroids, and we know that steroids allow the person to recover faster and handle more volume and intensity. So if even they got better results lifting less often and with less volume, how much more so will we as natural lifters recover better and stimulate hypertrophy and strength gains if we follow their example by prioritizing intensity over volume and lifting only 2 to 3 times a week. If you're natural, you can't recover as well as those who take steroids. So if even they saw better results lifting only 2 to 3 times a week, doing very low volume, high intensity, how much more so will we as natural lifters do so as well? So those are just a couple of the many anecdotal evidences. I did another training where I cover many other bodybuilders who, even natural ones, who train very similarly, and they have amazing physiques, and they're very, very strong as well. So if you want to see that, just let me know. I'll tag you in the video. But there is also so much science that points towards these principles too. So it's not just anecdotal. The science points towards all of these principles as well. And I have a training video and guide on that as well. If you want more details on that, just let me know. So if you want to maximize your muscle and strength building potential and save time in the process while lean bulking, make your workouts more effective and efficient by training to failure, doing just 1 set per exercise and 1 to 2 exercises per body part per workout. You can either do full body workouts or upper lower splits. If you're more new to training to failure, I suggest you start with full body. And then as you get better and better at training to failure and actually are training to failure, sometimes it can be better to do upper or lower splits. Otherwise, it can be way too fatiguing. So, and then also you'd want to ensure that your workouts are effective, which I have a whole training on that as well, both as a guide and a video. Okay, so I know we are almost done. So I know this is long, guys, but I like giving you guys detailed trainings that basically answer everything that you would want to know about the topics. So I hope you guys like all these details. So next one is, should you work your abs? When I say work your abs, I mean, should you isolate your abs in a workout or exercise? Short answer is, it's not required to keep your waist small or to even have visible abs. So if you're lifting heavy and effectively, like I teach, you'll automatically be training your abs in both your compound and isolation exercises. Isolation exercises that don't directly work your abs, like leg extensions as an example, that still works your abs if you're training to failure. And this is because if you're training hard by training to failure, you will automatically be engaging your core to brace and assist in the lift. For example, let's say a 200-pound man squats 500 pounds for 5 reps. In regards to relative strength, that's a lot of weight compared to his body weight. That's very strong. Do you think he is not working his abs? Of course he is. Like, there's no way that he's not working his abs, lifting that much weight for that many reps. So like I said, this applies to all lifts taken to failure, whether or not they directly work your abs. So you don't have to do direct ab work to have strong abs or visible abs, or even make your waist smaller. In some situations, working your abs can actually make your waist thicker. Now, you can do some ab exercises that specifically isolate your abs, other than the stomach vacuums that you should be doing, as explained earlier. Yes, you can do ab exercises that isolate the abs, but you don't need to spend a whole workout session devoted to abs. I would say you don't even need to spend more than 5 minutes on your abs if you're going to do isolation work on them. Just like you can fully stimulate a muscle to grow if you take just 1 or 2 exercises to failure, you can choose to do 1 or 2 exercises specifically for your abs and take those to failure. But again, they're not required. So yeah, if you're taking all of your exercises to failure, you will stimulate your abs adequately. And if your nutrition is in order, specifically a caloric deficit to lose fat, that is what is going to reveal your abs. So if you want to do an ab exercise or 2 at the end of your workout, that's fine, but don't spend more than 5 minutes doing it, and just take your sets to failure. Let me show you guys an example of me and my abs. Let me share my screen again. Okay, so this is me. You can see my abdominal lines really well. And this is me during a lean bulk. So if I started a deficit, then you'd be able to see them even more. And I do not train my abs in isolation at all. And I haven't for a couple of years either. All I do is heavy compound and isolation exercises for the rest of my body, and my abs automatically get trained. And, the nutrition reveals it. Okay. Okay. So this one is the last one, I think. Yes, it is. Okay. We are on the last step to do to keep your waist small and make it even smaller. And that is waist training. Waist training is very effective. This topic does apply more so to women, not men. I mean, I guess men could do it, but most corsets are designed for the feminine figure. So contrary to popular fitness coaches like Layne Norton and his ex-wife Holly Baxter, weight training is effective at making your waist smaller over time. For a couple of years, they make posts here and there. It's basically the same post each time where they talk about waist training and they say that it's not effective at making your waist smaller. But when they cover the topic of waist training, they only cover flexible cinchers. Cinchers are not the same as corsets, but they don't make that distinction. And I believe partly because they aren't knowledgeable enough on the topic to know the difference and to discuss its effectiveness. I've been waist training since 2013, I think. So yeah, 10 years. I've been waist training for 10 years. So I have a lot of experience with waist training. So cinchers are flexible, corsets are inflexible. Cinchers have flexible, oftentimes plastic boning, whereas corsets have rigid steel boning. So there's a huge difference between cinchers and corsets. As far as whether or not they are safe, as long as you are adequately eating enough food, the corset doesn't cause you pain, which it shouldn't if it fits you well, and you don't have existing pelvic floor issues or a hernia, waist training is perfectly safe. As far as being able to breathe, because I get this question a lot, like, can you breathe in your corset? I'm like, duh. You basically just adjust the tightness yourself. So you can make it as tight or as loose as you want. As an example, I can still belt in a cinched corset. So belting is a style of singing that is very powerful and it requires a lot of air. And also, as a fun fact, I also did a strongman competition during Halloween. It was just for fun in a corset. And I'll show you a picture of that in just a second. By the way, I don't recommend lifting or exercising in a corset. That purely was just for fun, and I wasn't trying to be actually competitive. So let me show you guys an example of the type of progress that you can make with waist training with a corset. Okay, so this is an extreme example. I didn't provide a lot of examples just because I'm trying to keep this training short. Sorry, guys. This is Ethel Granger. Obviously, she was not born with this extremely tiny waist. This is cinched to 13 inches right here. And this is her without her corset. So waist training is effective. It is a much slower process, so you do have to devote to it for years and be consistent with it. But if you're willing to do it, it can be extremely effective. Let's see. Okay, so And then once you do, so you don't obviously don't have to get as tiny as she was. That is a really extreme example. But as soon as you reach your goal waist size, if it's a specific number in mind or specific ratio or specific look, all you have to do is switch to maintenance mode. So I personally prefer and recommend to waist train while you sleep. That's what I personally do. But you can do so anywhere, anytime. A lot of people wear it underneath their clothes, whether they're going to work or just going about their daily lives. But you don't have to do that. That's called stealth mode when it comes to waist training. A lot of people wear it over their clothing. So you have a lot of flexibility. But I like to do it while sleeping just because it doesn't interfere with my daily life in any way. I just sleep in it for 8 hours, and I've had 8 hours of waist training. So that's my personal favorite. And no, it does not affect my sleep in any way. I will say that you need to adjust to it, just like, so those of you who are familiar with strength training or powerlifting, you know that your central nervous system, your CNS, has to have time to, so to speak, wake up to heavier and heavier weights. That applies to both the immediate workout and your central nervous system to be able to handle more and more weight overall as you increase your 1 rep max, things like that. So just like your central nervous system needs time to adjust to that, your central nervous system and body also need some time to adjust to waist training. So do take it slow. Those of you who wear weightlifting belts, especially the 10 mm lever belts that are really thick and stiff, when you first put on the belt, it feels a bit tight. But after you wait a few minutes of wearing it, it doesn't feel nearly as tight because your central nervous system has had time to adjust to it. It's the same thing with corsets. So let me show you guys a picture of me competing in a strongman competition in my corset. So this is me. This is doing some squatting thing with a tire on the back, and this is log press right here. So yeah, I think that covers everything. I'm just gonna do a quick little summary. Oh, so I also wanted to show you guys of my progress with waist training. So let's get my screen shared again. Okay. So this is 2013, 135 pounds. I'm 135 pounds here as well, but I have about a year and a half, 2 years of waist training as well. So yes, part of this is body recomposition. I lost fat and muscle, but my waist also got smaller due to waist training. I can't tell you guys, like, before I started weightlifting, waist training, sorry. Before I started waist training, even when I was very, very skinny, there was a time in my life when I was like 109 to 115 pounds, which was very, very skinny. And even when I was that skinny, I still had a straight up and down waist. I like to call it a ruler waist. And so even though I was very, very skinny, I had no waistline. And it wasn't until I started waist training that I actually have curves. I have a smaller waist than my hips. So yeah. So to summarize, guys, I wonder if I should even do a summary. This video is already long. Okay, I'll just do it super, super quickly. Okay, so to summarize, in a lean bulk, you'll want to aim to gain 0.2% to 0.5% of your body's weekly weight average each week. You will also want to keep protein high at 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body weight. You'll also want to prioritize carbs to boost your performance and your muscle building, like the way that your muscles look in terms of how full they are. So that would be 20 to 25% fat, and the rest of your calories are carbs. You'll want to train hard in the gym just 2 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week, depending on your recoverability. 1 set to failure is all that's needed, and you'll want to focus on increasing strength in each of your exercises each week. You'll want to prioritize your gut health, as bloating and constipation can not only cause health issues, but it can do the opposite of a stomach vacuum by expanding your stomach out due to the internal pressure. You'll want to do stomach vacuums daily. That works your transverse abdominis, which is like your body's inner corset to hold things in. And when you practice them, you can pull your stomach in and up, creating that nice X frame with the larger rib cage, smaller waist, and the wider hips. If you're lifting heavy, there's no need to do ab workouts. And if you really want to do it, corset training is a great option for women. Just take it slow and know that it's going to be a lifelong dedication, basically. Because even if you waist train and you get your waist smaller and smaller, if you stop waist training altogether and you don't switch to maintenance mode, your basically will go back. It'll take some time, but it will rebound, so to speak, to its what the waist size that it's used to. So that's it, guys. Sorry it was really long. It's like an hour and 10 minutes. Sorry, guys. I really like giving you guys details, and just really covering the science of all of it and stuff like that. So let me check Facebook, see if y'all have questions. Okay, awesome. Stuff like that. So let me check. So thank you guys for joining. If y'all have any questions, just let me know. If you want the readable guide, I will post about it tomorrow, and just comment if you want it.